At my sister's baby shower, she handed me a cupcake and said loudly, "You're not family. You're just the one who writes checks." Her husband laughed. Mom whispered, "Don't overreact, she's pregnant." I'd paid $2,300 for the hall, her gifts, and the catering deposit. I set the cupcake down, took back the card envelope, and said, "Then let them pay, I'm out." I didn't yell. I started making quiet moves. The next morning, there was a knock they didn't expect. "You're not family, you're just the one who writes checks," she said, smiling sweetly while handing me a cupcake. Her husband laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. I just stood there, my hand frozen midair, the paper wrapper of the cupcake sticking awkwardly to my fingers. For a second, I wondered if maybe I'd misunderstood, if I'd read too much into a bad joke. But the look on her face, amused, not apologetic, said it all. It was her baby shower. The one I'd paid for. The one that cost me $2,300, including the venue deposit, catering, the customized cake with little baby sneakers on top, and the obnoxiously large balloon she insisted on. I even printed the invitations myself when she said she didn't want to deal with it. But apparently, I wasn't family anymore. Just the wallet with legs. My mom leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper behind her champagne flute. "Don't overreact, she's pregnant." Overreact? I stared at my sister, who was now waddling toward the photo booth with one hand on her bump and the other holding a mimosa. Her husband high-fived one of his groomsmen, or maybe it was just another guy from their growing collection of Instagram friend fodder, and said something about me being useful at least. I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout or throw the cupcake. Instead, I calmly walked to the gift table, reached into the pile, and pulled out my envelope, the one with the card and the check. Nobody noticed at first. The music was loud. The room was buzzing with small talk and clinking glasses. But then I turned, held the envelope up just enough for her to see, and said loud enough for the surrounding table to hear, "Then let them pay for it. I'm out." Silence. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked straight out of the hall, passing the caterers unloading trays of tiny quiches I'd already paid for. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. But what they didn't know was that I'd already made other moves. Quieter ones. Smarter ones. And the next morning, when the knock came at their door, the one they never expected, everything started to unravel. Let me tell you how I became their personal ATM and why that cupcake was the last straw. They didn't always treat me like a checkbook. That came later, slowly, subtly, like a frog in boiling water. Growing up, I was the fixer, the peacemaker, the older brother who kept things together while my parents argued and my sister cried about the wrong color ballet shoes. Our mom was the kind of woman who could guilt a priest into confessing sins he didn't commit. Dad? He just nodded along to keep the peace, the classic, go along to get along man. That left me. By 15, I had my first job. By 18, I was paying part of the utility bills. My sister, Candace, was still throwing tantrums when Starbucks got her name wrong. I was building credit. She was building mood boards for her future dream wedding. You can guess who ended up paying for that wedding. I covered the catering shortfall when her husband's groomsmen forgot to RSVP. I paid for the honeymoon upgrade when she called me crying from the airport because her sandals broke and she couldn't possibly go to the Bahamas without the right shoes. I even co-signed their lease when they moved into that overpriced condo, the one with a rooftop pool they never used but posted on Instagram weekly. And the thanks I got? The occasional, "You're the best big bro." And once, I swear to God, a $25 Starbucks card for Christmas, with $3.17 left on it. But I kept giving. Not because I was a pushover, but because I thought that's what family did. You lift each other up. You help out when you can. You don't say no when your sister's crying about the baby crib she wants being just a little out of budget. Except she wasn't crying when she asked for that crib. She was smirking, holding up her phone and waving around a screenshot of some influencer's nursery like it was a binding financial contract. If we don't get the same one, it'll ruin the whole aesthetic. And I paid $1,299 for a piece of painted wood that looked exactly like the $300 version but with French branding. She didn't say thank you. She said, "You're such a lifesaver," like I was a human insurance policy. Then came the shower. She didn't plan a thing. I did the invites, booked the venue, even had to chase down her husband, Nick, the kind of guy who still calls himself an entrepreneur in a LinkedIn profile that still says entrepreneur to get the guest list. Candace? She spent her time posting mama-to-be glam shoot selfies and sending me Pinterest boards labeled must-have aesthetic. The day of the shower, I showed up early to set everything up. Her friends showed up late and immediately started commenting on the wine selection I'd paid for. One of them even asked, "So what do you do?" With that tone, like she was hoping I'd say investment banker or plastic surgeon. I told her I ran a mid-sized logistics firm. She blinked and said, "Oh, so trucks." I just smiled. "Big trucks. Big money." Candace overheard. "Later," she said, "could you maybe not say trucks next time? It sounds very utility. Not fun." That's who I was to her. Not fun. Just useful. But still, I bit my tongue. Until the cupcake. Until she said, in front of a room full of people, "You're not family, you're just the one who writes checks." And Nick laughed. That laugh. That ridiculous laugh. I'd seen that same laugh when I paid off their rent last winter because freelancing is unpredictable. When I covered their car payment, just for this month. When I Venmo'd $200 after she texted, "emergency vet visit," only to find out it was for a pet rabbit she never even named. But this time, I didn't laugh. I took back the envelope. Not the cupcake. The envelope. Because inside it was a $500 check and a card I'd actually written from the heart. I walked out, past the gift table, all filled with things I'd ordered off her Amazon registry because she wanted 0 duplicates and only neutral colors. Past the decorations I'd installed myself. Past the friends who'd smiled at me but hadn't helped with a single thing. And I left. But like I said, I didn't stop there. The next morning, there was a knock they didn't expect. And behind that knock was everything they thought I'd just keep swallowing. I'd been quiet long enough. Now it was my turn to speak. And trust me, it was going to be loud. I wasn't family? Cool. Then let's talk contracts, debts, and boundaries. They didn't hear the knock right away. It was early, not quite dawn, but close. Just enough light in the sky to make you question if it was still night. I was already dressed, sipping black coffee in my truck outside their apartment complex. Watching. It was Nick who opened the door. Bleary-eyed, shirtless, hair sticking up like a hedgehog. He squinted at the man in a blazer on the other side of the door, not me. "Not yet." Can I help you?" he mumbled. "Delivery for Candace and Nicholas Reed," the man said, holding out a sealed envelope. "Certified. Need your signature." Nick scratched his stomach and signed. By the time he realized what it was, a formal repayment demand, I was already halfway across the parking lot, walking toward them with a folder in hand and a very different kind of smile. "Morning," I said casually. Candace was behind him now, robe pulled tight, mascara smudged under her eyes. What is this?" "Oh," I said, flipping open the folder, "just documentation. Since apparently I'm not family, just the guy who writes checks, I figured I'd start acting accordingly." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You're joking." "Nope," I said. "Here's a detailed breakdown of every dollar I've loaned or gifted in the last 4 years. Wedding costs, rent, baby shower expenses, crib, catering, even that maternity shoot and nappy you said was a moment you couldn't miss. Remember that one? You wore a flower crown. I paid for the photographer." Nick stepped forward, trying to puff himself up. "Yo man, this is really petty." "Petty?" I smiled. "No, Nick. Petty was laughing when your wife publicly humiliated me in front of 50 people. This is financial accountability." Candace's voice went shrill. "You can't be serious. That's family stuff. You don't keep tabs on that." "You're right," I said. "You don't, when you're treated like family. But since I'm just the checkbook, consider this my final balance sheet." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then came the real explosion. "You're heartless," she snapped. "I'm pregnant. And you're choosing this moment, to do this." "That's rich," I said. "You chose your moment when you called me not family." "And Nick," you laughed. "You laughed while holding a plate of food I paid for." "So no, I didn't choose the moment. You did." Nick lunged forward a little, chest out. "You gonna hit me with a lawsuit over baby shower cupcakes, bro?" I took a step closer, nose to nose. "No lawsuit. Just terms. You have 90 days to repay $8,643.12, itemized, with receipts. If you can't, I'll be sending the documents to small claims court. And you know what that means, right? This would go through the usual small claims process. Good luck applying for that new SUV you wanted." Candace's face crumpled. "You're ruining everything." "I'm cleaning up the mess," I snapped. Not to punish them, but because carrying it all alone had finally worn me down. "Mess you made by treating me like a wallet instead of a brother." She went for the jugular. "You're just bitter because you don't have a family of your own." That one hurt, like a blade between the ribs. But I didn't flinch. I let it sit in the air like poison, then said slowly, I may not have a family, Candace, but I have self-respect. And that's more than you'll have when this kid grows up and sees how you treat people. She gasped, like I'd said something unforgivable. But I was far from done. Also, I added, I spoke to the landlord. Did you know co-signers can withdraw their name after 12 months? You might want to start looking for another guarantor, because I sent in the request this morning. Nick actually paled. Wait, you're pulling out of the lease? Effective in 30 days, I said. You're welcome to apply to stay, but the new lease will be based on your income and credit score. He looked like he might throw up. And before you ask, no, I won't be paying next month's rent. Not my responsibility anymore, remember? I'm not family. That last part, I delivered it quietly, calmly, and that's when it finally sank in. I wasn't playing anymore. I wasn't begging for appreciation. I was done. Nick muttered something I didn't catch. Candace was crying now. Not sobbing. Rage crying, the kind where the mouth opens but the sound is fury. And I turned, walked back to my truck, and drove away. That night, I got messages from Mom. Paragraphs. She didn't mean it. And you know how emotional pregnancy makes people. And don't throw away your relationship with your sister over a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. Then she sent the last one. Don't overreact. It was just a joke. Just a joke. That's when I blocked her. I'd made the quiet move. Now I was making the loud one. No more funding people who mock me. No more enabling. No more fake family ties held together by guilt and money. They thought I'd always be there. They thought I needed them. But they forgot the most important thing. I was the one holding everything up. And I just let go. I cut them off, and their perfect little world fell apart without me. The silence was the best part. No more 2 a.m. Venmo requests. No more, hey, quick favor, texts that always ended with a $sign. No more birthday invites that arrived the same day as the party, because, of course, I was expected to just show up and pay. I didn't tell anyone else in the family what I'd done. I didn't make a post online. Didn't write a dramatic goodbye speech. I simply went ghost. I didn't attend the baby's birth. Didn't send a gift. Didn't acknowledge the Facebook announcement with the filters and tiny feet and so blessed. Let the whole thing pass like any other Tuesday. And just like that, I disappeared from their world. But they couldn't disappear from mine. Not yet. Because my phone started lighting up again. Not from Candace. Not from Nick. But from people I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins, aunts, even my mom's church friend, the one who always smelled like lavender and judgment. Your sister's struggling. She's a new mom. She made a mistake. Families fight, but they forgive. She's not working, and Nick just lost a client. They're drowning. And here's the kicker, my mom? She showed up at my work. Unannounced. Right there in the lobby of my logistics office, holding a casserole dish like we were in some Hallmark reconciliation special. I walked right past her. Didn't stop. Because when you stop, they pull you back in. But I wasn't going back. I was finally building a life that wasn't built on debt and obligation. In the months that followed, something remarkable happened. I started breathing again. I went on a solo trip to Banff. I hiked the mountains, watched the stars, didn't check my phone for days. The quiet was unreal. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis I'd be forced to fix. I joined a gym, got back in shape, started dating again, real dates, where I wasn't splitting my focus between the person across the table and the financial drama waiting on my phone. And then I did something even scarier. I called my bank, took out a loan, not for someone else, but for me. Bought a small warehouse on the edge of the city, moved my business there, expanded, hired 3 new people, my own name on the lease, my own name on the door. Meanwhile, back in Candace's world, things were unraveling. Nick's side hustles, the ones he always bragged about, the clients he never named, dried up. Their credit tanked. Landlord didn't renew their lease. They moved into a 2-bedroom with her mother-in-law. The baby cried constantly, and the neighbors complained. Candace posted cryptic Instagram stories about being betrayed by blood and cutting out the toxic ones. Sure, whatever helps her sleep at night. I got a message from one of her friends. A long one. She's not okay. She's angry, but she's hurting. She feels abandoned. I didn't respond. Because I hadn't abandoned her. I'd saved her. From herself. From the delusion that money equals love. That family equals infinite tolerance. Nick tried reaching out next, through a mutual friend. Said he respected my boundaries and just wanted to talk man to man. The same guy who laughed when his pregnant wife called me a checkbook now wanted to talk like we were equals. Still no reply. And yet, despite the chaos, the one I least expected to hear from did. My dad. He hadn't said a word through all this. Typical. Quiet when things go loud. Always let Mom and Candace run the script. But then one day my phone rang. His name on the screen. I almost ignored it. But something made me pick up. Hey, he said. Can we talk? We met at a diner halfway between his house and my office. He looked older. Smaller. Like time had finally caught up with him. I didn't know what to say, he admitted, stirring his coffee. I watched it all happen. The shower. The envelope. The fallout. And I just froze. I didn't interrupt. Your mother, she always said, don't rock the boat. But the boat's sinking now. Candace, she's different. Meaner. And I think a part of her believes you'll come back. That you'll sweep in and fix it like always. I raised an eyebrow. And you? He met my eyes. I know better. There was a pause. And then, he said something I never expected. You did the right thing. That broke something in me. Something tight that had been strangling my chest for years. It didn't fix everything. Didn't erase the years of feeling invisible while Candace got every pass. But it meant something. I'm proud of you, he added. I paid the bill. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. When I walked out, the air felt lighter. And a week later, something even stranger happened. A letter. Handwritten. From Candace. For pages of mess. Anger. Regret. Excuses. A few I didn't mean it lines. Some I wasn't thinking phrases. But hidden in there, between the manipulation and the half-hearted apologies, was a sentence I'll never forget. You were never just the guy who wrote checks. You were the only one who ever showed up. I didn't write back. But I didn't throw the letter away either. Because maybe, just maybe, people can change. Or maybe not. Either way, I wasn't waiting around to find out. I was never the problem. I was the solution they took for granted. It's funny what happens when you stop chasing people who wouldn't walk one step for you. The silence that used to feel like abandonment starts to sound like peace. I used to think family was something you owed. A blood contract. A lifelong subscription with no cancellation policy. But now I know the truth. Family is earned. It's how they treat you when you say no. And when I finally said no, they showed me exactly who they were. Candace, Nick, even Mom. They were never looking for a brother or a son. They wanted a sponsor, a silent investor, a reliable emotional sponge who absorbed every tantrum, every debt, every snide remark, without ever snapping. But I snapped. And instead of shattering, I sharpened. I remember sitting on my couch 3 months later. No calls. No texts, just me and the stillness. My apartment never looked better. New art on the walls. A record player in the corner. The bottle of scotch I used to keep for guests, I opened it for myself. And as I sat there, watching the sun slide behind the city skyline, I realized something. I didn't miss them. Not their drama. Not their fake apologies. Not the way Candace used to hug me like she was reaching for a donation. I missed the version of myself who thought he was loved. But that version died the day I was handed a cupcake and told I wasn't family. Now I'm building something new. A life that doesn't revolve around fixing other people's messes. A life that doesn't require me to set myself on fire just to keep someone else warm. The final message I got, weeks later, from an unknown number, simply said, "We named him after you." I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it moved me, but because it proved everything. They still wanted to use my name. I didn't feel victorious, just lighter, like someone who finally stopped trying to earn love through sacrifice. Still wanted a piece of the legacy they never respected. But they couldn't have it. Not my money, not my time, not even my name. Because now, I live for me. And that version of me. He doesn't write checks for people who treat him like a balance sheet. He writes his own story,